in Walkabout Mini Golf. Going to play the new Gardens of Babylon course with Anton Hand here. And you are in a Steam VR headset, I assume?
Yep, of course.
Which headset, if you mind me asking?
Oh, an Index. And a Vive wand, because I'm weird.
The developer of one of the most popular VR games, and you refuse to move beyond a controller made in 2016, right?
Well, it's funny because we're playing a golf game here, which is a game where you hold an object in your hand, which actually makes a Vive wand the most sensible VR controller made to play this game, because you can easily shift it back and forth between your two hands and hold it with two hands.
Yeah. And I'm in a Quest, and what we were just talking about is over here I've got this microphone button that, I can't tell if it's on or off over here, but right next to it, I have an Oculus invite button. Do you have that on your system?
Nope.
Yeah, so on my system here on Quest, I have an O invite button that I assume will initiate a party on the Oculus system so that I can stick with the meta friends across various Quest experiences. How do you feel right now, Anton, not having that button?
I don't give a shit.
Alright, let's go play.
Wow. That is a great looking wrap right there. Love the...
How's your week?
I've been putting together all of these new tutorial videos and a brand new item spawner for update 100 of H3 after pushing that video functionality live on our alpha branch on Friday. After it worked fine for my small testing group, a whole bunch of users reported it was broken, who all had AMD video cards. So I spent the first part of this week panicking and trying to figure out why it was broken and how to fix it. And only fixed it last night, so it has been a trying past couple days. Awesome.
That's on an alpha branch. Do you have any kind of guess as to how many people that affects?
I never have exact numbers of how many users are actually on my alpha branch testing, but the fact that I was able to easily get 12 people to give me "it's broken for me," that indicates to me that this is going to be a sizable number of people, especially with the GPU shortages of the past 2 years. That it's going to be a large problem, and so it became priority number one, fixing that.
You gave me a 4-letter room code, and I was in here in less than 5 minutes, which, to be fair, was still a long time. I still felt like I left you waiting. I think a lot about these headsets as replacements for telephones, and I wonder if that's ever something you're gonna do with these headsets, Anton. Are you gonna use these to connect with people over long distances in any substantial way?
In my case, I'm not in here because this is some superior way of me catching up with you in isolation. I'm here because the activity that we're performing is compelling on top of this being a wonderful virtualized platform. And I think that gets to why there's a laundry list of virtual worlds and platforms and such that have been made and have come and have gone that attempted to have no central verb to them other than I am in it.
I'm up at the large scale view trying to see where it is on the map where we are right now.
I'm waving at you. Down. Further down. I'm behind a tree.
Behind a tree. Oh, there you go. Okay, I see you. All right. Wow. Okay. That's really cool. Never gets old, that view. I remember Sculptor VR. It must have been the first time I recall resizing myself in a multiplayer experience. And I imagine that's probably an old concept, like everything that's done with VR has been done a decade and a half before, to a large degree. But resizing yourself never gets old.
It really doesn't. I've gotten several people hooked on this. You get that social experience, but I think this might be the most peaceful set of virtual environments to be in. They're such a delight.
Yeah. You come in here for meetings? Is that true?
Yeah, every now and again. Meetings, and also just to catch up with a couple people who are on the other side of the country. I've gotten a couple people hooked on this specific game recently. It's been a delight.
I always come back to Walkabout Mini Golf as this great example of voice and ball position. Like, that's all you need, really, to make this work. Have you ever played Half and Half? You ever seen it played?
Half and Half?
Yeah, it's called Half and Half. It's on Quest. It's more or less a tech demo for the normal social toolset.
Yeah, I've seen a video or two.
You can actually talk to the other players, but they turn everything you say into gibberish. So you can get the sense of someone gibbering at you, but you can't actually make out what they're saying, and it's a brilliant little way of making it a playful atmosphere.
Huh. That's delightful.
Like, you've got these jelly hands, and there's not even fingers, so you can't even talk about doing rude gestures.
It's amazing how much we have to just dial everything so far back to make a virtual environment even remotely kid-friendly.
One comment that Andrew Bosworth over at Meta mentioned was the mute button being pretty powerful in social spaces, and I'm curious how far social VR gets with the mute button, and whether that mute button gets applied to AR. How does that function when you're out and about? You can always take the headset off and yell on your soapbox without augmentation if you want.
What percentage of people just walk around with a pair of headphones or AirPods or what have you in all day, every day, effectively having a mute button on the rest of the world around them to begin with? I don't think that will be anything remotely new to the AR experience. Oh, way too hard. One of the things I really love is the way in which the sort of like complexity of embankment and border evolves over the course of the courses, just like slowly letting you know you're going to get a very different physics behavior out of this. You want to see a gorgeous little touch that as a tech artist I appreciate? So, real-time shadows are expensive, right? You should see a little bit of a dark shadow beneath the club. It's not actually a shadow, it's just a stretched, circular sprite that just aligns itself with the nearest surface.
I don't think it works for me right now until maybe when I'm on my ball, it'll come up.
When yours is solid, play around with putting the end of your putter like near the convex surface of an object, and you can actually see the visual effect break, which almost no one would even think to do, but it basically turns the process of giving you a little bit of grounding to see where your club is into something that from a performance standpoint is basically free, where shadows are expensive.
I'm looking at it. Interesting. So yeah, I've got the impression of a shadow here, but it's a pretty simple effect. I had the developer of this game in our studio, and he said it got its start as an iPhone game. And they had an iPhone mobile phone version of this game still floating around that they could finish and release, and we could connect to from a mobile phone in the same way that we do from Steam and Quest.
Huh.
I thought it was a pretty interesting route to a VR product, going from having a mobile phone build that kind of gets you a lot of the way there performance-wise for getting the game ready for Quest, while also being able to put it on Steam. I think it was Steam quite a bit after Quest. But just interesting to me that it starts off as an iPhone game, gets released as Quest at just the right time in Quest's adoption curve. And then there's this Steam version as well that is just so effective at letting you connect with anyone else with a VR headset that you want. As someone like yourself who's been at this for so many years, grinding it out on more than 100 PC VR updates, Do you feel any jealousy or anything at seeing a dev be able to reach that kind of user base in that amount of time compared to what you did?
Not really. Just because user base size isn't something that I ever really think about at the core of my practice. Like, H3 is a laughably inaccessible, deep simulation game. It's the opposite of what you make if you're making a software product and care about maximizing the size of your user base. It's always been, even if it weren't a VR game, it would be a niche game. I'm envious of the fact that they get to engage in certain types of design in this game. Like, as an environment artist, I'm like, oh, I wish I could do environments this dense, you know, in H3, but I've made other sorts of tech decisions and game mechanic decisions that would make this performance untenable to do in H3.
Yeah, like you've got one physics object in this world, right?
Yep, exactly. Like, when complex things don't have to collide, you can do things this noisy and complex and overlapped. Ooh, oh, I teased you twice there. That was just mean. That was just mean. Oh, it's going to do the same to me.
You get irked by people who seem to think they can run your business better than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And one way I see that pop out on your social feeds, people saying something to the effect of, why do you hate money? That's one, I think, that's a trigger for you. You've had to tell some customers not only that they're wrong, but that they're wrong, and then you've also thrown some expletives at them. And that's a certain way of doing business that, like, certain people think is just not the way you should ever do business.
What are the axioms you bring into doing business in general? There are certain people who operate from a core principle that more business is always a better way of doing business, that you should always be seeking to optimize for the maximum number of people, alter whatever your plans are to address the largest market possible, and that's always the primary concern, and that everything else is secondary. And I just don't believe that. And so I think you can derive lots of other things just from that difference of starting point.
You've said repeatedly platforms don't have your back. How do you choose to continue to operate if, I don't know, Steam is the only place you feel comfortable putting your content?
I mean, it's sustainable for now, and if that changes, I don't know, I'll find something different to do with my life.
Do you ever get threatened competitively? Do you ever get jealous or scared of not being able to do what you do?
Not in the least. So I say to people, I lived the first couple decades of my life poor as dirt. I know I can do that again if I need to. If that's the worst that can happen, like, that's not so bad. It certainly doesn't scare me. And it certainly doesn't place me in a situation where I feel forced to do anything.
Can I say your UI looks bad?
Of course!
Yeah.
Of course!
At some point, you'll get to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like after 5 years, you would grow tired of it and want to move on to something else.
My goal in life is not to make the maximum number of VR games humanly possible. It's to continue delivering VR content that is enjoyed by our audience, that is compatible with my interests. And in the case of H3, it makes more sense, at least for a while longer, to continue doing that as add-ons to an existing product instead of trying to launch new products in an incredibly saturated market. Oh, there's one more hole.
35% of Steam VR users are Quest 2 buyers. That probably makes easily 1/2 of your audience is going to be on a Quest. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, at least looking at new users especially. think I got it at the top.
Par? Oh. Alright, so before I hit this final hole, you gotta answer that question. Mark Zuckerberg likes the game Civilization. And so here we are in ancient Babylon. And I think about the rules of Civilization and how they work. And you build up armies, and then you encircle your enemies, and you can win multiple ways. You don't have to win by army, you can win by culture and all those other things. You've been there this whole time, Anton, warning people about Facebook. And 50% of our users are on their headsets. And you refuse to do business with them, but still, 50% of your users are on their headsets. Where is this going, and how do you feel to be part of it?
I think it's going nowhere particularly good, and how I feel, I'm stuck in the burning vehicle just like all of us are.
Alright, I guess that's a good quote to end off an interview in Babylon with, isn't it? What an appropriate comment for this setting, huh? Okay.
Sadly, yes.
Alright, who ultimately won here? Let's see.
Yes, you still have to get it in the fountain.
Oh no, I missed it so bad it didn't even go in, so the game hasn't ended? Oh, come on.
There you go.
Alright, I'll take it. Terrible. Terrible, terrible.
One of these days I'll actually hit par on this one. I am not good at this game. I love it anyway.